Imagine standing completely alone in the pitch-black hallway of room 502. The air is freezing. You hear footsteps. Then, a child's voice whispers right next to your ear, asking for a cigarette. But when you turn around, no one is there. We are going to play that exact, terrifying audio evidence for you later in this video. And it will completely change what investigators thought they knew about the afterlife. But to understand that voice, you first need to understand the sheer scale of the nightmare that is Waverly Hills Sanatorium. This is not just a story about ghosts. This is a story about human suffering, medical desperation, and a building that absorbed so much death it simply refused to let the spirits leave. Opened in 1910 in Louisville, Kentucky, Waverly Hills was built to fight a terrifying enemy, tuberculosis. In the early 20th century, TB was a death sentence. It was known as the White Plague. It literally consumed people from the inside out. Patients would suffer from chronic coughing, coughing up blood, extreme weight loss, and a slow, agonizing suffocation as their lungs deteriorated. There was no cure. There were no antibiotics. The only treatment doctors had was fresh air, good food, and rest. To facilitate this, Waverly Hills was designed as a massive, sprawling complex. At its peak, it housed over 400 patients. The architecture was specifically designed to maximize airflow. Patients were placed on open-air porches, sleeping outside even in the dead of winter, bundled in blankets and wearing masks to breathe the cold, supposedly pure air. Imagine the psychological toll of lying in a freezing bed, coughing up your own lungs, staring out at the Kentucky tree line, knowing that you were likely never going home. Over its lifetime, it is estimated that over 63,000 people died within these walls. The death toll was so staggeringly high that the staff had to get creative just to hide the grim reality from the living patients. If patients saw body after body being carried out the front doors, it would destroy whatever hope they had left. Hope was a crucial part of the TB treatment. So, the staff needed a way to remove the dead without the living ever knowing. This led to the creation of the most infamous feature of Waverly Hills, a massive 530-foot-long underground tunnel known as the Body Chute. When a patient died, their body was placed in the tunnel, loaded into a cart, and rolled down the dark, echoing slope to the bottom of the hill, where a hearse was waiting out of sight. Today, paranormal investigators claim the Body Chute is one of the most active spots in the entire hospital. People who walk through the tunnel report an overwhelming feeling of dread. They report feeling an unseen presence pushing them from behind, as if something is trying to force them deeper into the dark. Others hear the distinct, terrifying sound of wooden wheels rolling on concrete, echoing through the tunnel when it is completely empty. Some investigators have even captured thermal video showing cold spots moving rapidly down the tunnel, mimicking the exact path a body cart would take. But if the Body Chute is active, the 4th and 5th floors are where the true evil resides. Specifically, room 502 on the 4th floor. This single room is responsible for more paranormal activity, more physical attacks, and more terrifying evidence than the rest of the building combined. Legend says that in the 1920s, a nurse working in room 502 discovered she was pregnant. Knowing she could not afford a wedding and terrified of the social scandal, she took her own life in this very room, allegedly hanging herself from the ceiling fan. While historical records of the sanatorium do not explicitly document this specific suicide, the energy in the room perfectly matches the law. Over the decades, thousands of investigators have entered room 502, and the experiences are almost universally horrifying. People report a heavy, suffocating pressure in the room, as if an invisible entity is sitting directly on their chest. This is a classic symptom of sleep paralysis, but investigators experience it while wide awake. They report feeling invisible hands grabbing their hair, pulling it violently. They report unexplained scratches appearing on their arms and backs after leaving the room. But the most common and terrifying phenomenon in room 502 is the appearance of shadow people. Unlike traditional ghosts that might look like translucent figures in old clothing, shadow people are described as tall, dark, solid masses of blackness. They have no facial features. They are often described as wearing a hat or a hood. Investigators in room 502 frequently report seeing a tall shadow figure standing in the doorway, just watching them. When they blink or when they turn on a flashlight, the figure vanishes.
Which brings us back to the audio. The visual evidence of shadow figures is terrifying, but the audio evidence is what truly breaks people. In the mid-2000s, a team of investigators set up high-quality digital recorders in room 502 to capture electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Is the practice of recording audio in a supposedly empty room and listening back for voices that were not heard at the time of recording. It is highly controversial, but the recordings from Waverly Hills are some of the most compelling in the world. The investigators in room 502 isolated themselves, turned off all their equipment to prevent radio frequency interference, and sat in total silence. At one point, the lead investigator asked into the empty room, asking if there was anyone there with them. For a few seconds, there was only the hum of the digital recorder. And then, clear as day, a voice responded. The voice said, quote, "Can I have a cigarette?" End quote. The investigators were absolutely stunned. They had not mentioned cigarettes. They had not asked about a child, but the voice was distinctly young and undeniably female. It was not a random burst of static. It had the cadence, the pitch, and the clarity of a human voice. It is widely believed that this is the spirit of a child who died in the sanatorium, still wandering the halls, looking for a comfort they never received in life. But that was not the only voice caught on tape that night. Later in the same session, another investigator asked a different question. They asked if the spirit was in pain. The response that came back through the speaker made the hair on their arms stand up. The voice, this time sounding distinctly older and strained, whispered, quote, "Help me," end quote. Hearing a voice beg for help in a room where thousands of people died in agony is a deeply unsettling experience. It strips away the romanticism of ghost hunting and forces you to confront the very real, very human suffering that occurred in those walls. Another famous EVP captured in the hallways outside of room 502 is a deep guttural voice simply saying, quote, "Get out," end quote, a clear warning from whatever entity guards the fourth floor. If room 502 is the heart of the haunting, the abandoned ballroom on the third floor is its playground. In the 1920s and 30s, the staff used to throw dances in this massive room to lift the spirits of the dying patients.
Lift the spirits of the dying patients. They would bring in a phonograph, decorate the room, and encourage the patients, many of whom were in the final stages of the disease, to dance and forget their pain for just a few hours. Today, the music is gone, the floorboards are rotting, and the paint is peeling off the walls in massive sheets. But the energy remains. Investigators frequently hear the distinct sound of a phonograph playing old jazz music, echoing from the corners of the room. Others feel cold hands grabbing their arms, physically pulling them toward the center of the dance floor. Some have even captured audio of a full orchestra tuning their instruments, despite the room being completely empty and devoid of any electrical power. The haunting of Waverly Hills is not limited to just the famous hotspots. The entire building is saturated with activity. The tunnels beneath the hospital, which were originally used to transport coal and supplies, are a labyrinth of darkness. Urban explorers who sneak into the tunnels often report their flashlights dying simultaneously. They report hearing whispers echoing from the dead ends of the tunnels and feeling a sudden drastic drop in temperature that they can see in their breath. There are also countless stories from the local police and security guards who were hired to watch the building after it was finally closed in the late 1960s. After the tuberculosis epidemic waned due to the discovery of antibiotics, Waverly Hills was converted into a geriatric hospital, Woodhaven Geriatric Center. But the building was poorly maintained, and it eventually fell into disrepair, closing its doors for good in the early 1980s. When it was abandoned, the city hired security guards to patrol the grounds and keep out trespassers. Many of these guards refused to work the night shift after just a few weeks. They reported being followed through the dark hallways. They reported doors slamming shut and locking them inside rooms. One guard famously reported that while he was sitting in the security booth on the ground floor, he looked up at the security monitors and saw a figure standing directly behind him. When he spun around, no one was there. He looked back at the monitor, and the figure was leaning in, right next to his ear. He quit the next morning and never returned.
Waverly Hills is not just an old, creepy building. It is a massive stone tomb holding the echoes of 63,000 tragic deaths. It is a monument to a time when medicine was helpless and death was a daily, visible reality. The staff tried to hide the bodies in the tunnels. They tried to hide the despair behind open-air porches and forced dances in the ballroom. But you cannot hide from the dead. And as the audio from room 502 proves, they are still trying to communicate. They are still trapped in the cycle of their final moments, reaching out to the living for help, for comfort, or simply to be acknowledged. The question that every paranormal investigator has to ask themselves when they visit Waverly Hills is whether these spirits are actually the dead, or if the building itself has absorbed so much trauma that it has created a psychological imprint, a residual energy that plays back the horrors of the past on a loop. But when a voice clearly says, quote, "Help me," end quote, in response to a specific question, it becomes very hard to believe it is just a loop. It feels deeply, undeniably conscious. Would you spend a single night alone in room 502, listening to the whispers in the dark? Let us know in the comments below what you think is really happening at Waverly Hills. If you want to hear more terrifying audio evidence and explore the darkest corners of history, hit that subscribe button and click the video on your screen right now. Stay curious and stay out of the dark.